So Jared,
Yes.
have you ever had a massage?
So random. No, like actually going somewhere to get a professional massage.
Paid professional.
Like, yeah,
massage.
someone is just randomly. Yeah, but no, I've not
Okay.
gone.
I've done this a few times over the years.
Wow. Josh living the high life.
And it's quite pleasant if you get someone that's good at.
I think it moved. I always want to think of Seinfeld anytime we bring anything up.
On that note, I have had female and male masseuses.
Okay.
Masseusai.
Yeah. So you're not concerned about that like George was.
No. I'm but
okay.
I got a massage last week.
Yeah.
At a new place because they try out some new places. Well, it was kind of more in the Chambersburg area.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say I've never had a massage like this.
Okay, you're gonna have to add some context. To this.
some color to this. So
these will be taken many ways. So,
so let's just say, I would say it was more like an engineer giving a massage than an artist giving a massage.
All right.
So it was more like, okay, checking the boxes of what I'm doing, and less like, because at least in my experience, most people, they're kind of, it's more like a flow and they're doing their thing. And
there is an art to it.
And and this was just like, I'm told to do this, then I do this, then I do this, then I do this.
So this would be like the closest to like if an AI did a massage.
Yeah.
Okay.
A robotic massage. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
But also this woman was kind of on the smaller side.
Mm-hmm.
So she definitely was up on the table.
Oh, it was one of those. Yeah.
Yes. And crossed over, like climbed over me to switch sides.
Interesting.
Yep. And so it was an experience, and I felt more like I was assaulted than
so it wasn't a relaxing experience.
Not at all. It was a very, very interesting experience. Hey, welcome back to Screen Time TV, a podcast where we cover TV shows, currently covering Severance Season 2. Today we're discussing the finale. We also typically discuss what we were watching and have a little internet game show called Based or Waste, but today we're going to skip those because the finale was a little longer, and we're just going to get into that.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Yeah.
So Jared, I was cross with you earlier. I almost threw a tin of candies.
I hate when that happens.
So my name is Josh, and this is my co-host Jared.
See you at the equator, Josh.
Yes.
I got to do my other.
You got a few other. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. Goodly splendor awaits upon your victory, Josh.
Yes.
And good thing you didn't write the first appendix. It would have burst.
Yep.
That fits well when we do dad jokes for the movies.
There was like several dad jokes.
Yeah, it was good.
Several dad punny jokes in there. All right. Well, let's just get into it. The synopsis for this episode. 10, called Cold Harbor. Mark forms a shaky alliance in an all or nothing play, while the team makes a dangerous last stand. So it was a little more verbose than
a little more
than they typically
descriptive. Yeah.
All right. So, what was your overall thoughts on this season 2 finale?
I want to hear you go first with overall thoughts this time.
Man, always.
Not always. I've been going a lot. I'm curious.
All right. I think this was a fantastic finale. I think, and season 2 overall was fantastic. I think for a sophomore run, most shows stumble after being so well made and successful in a season 1. And I think they really were able to build on what they did in season 1 and really take this to another level. And only thing would be, I mean, I don't know that I would say this is, I really enjoyed this. I think it was still also really well written and directed and made. Still don't know. I mean, still season 1's finale was so awesome that I don't know that I would say this is better, but I think it's close to being on par.
I have almost the exact same thoughts of this.
Okay.
I'll add one thing to it, but yes, I still think this is amazing. I mean, overall, this was an amazing season, and I love this finale. But it was not as good as season 1 finale. But I also think it's like, I don't think it could, because that was almost like perfect. That like, I don't think they could ever live up to that. And when I was going into watching this episode, I had faith it was going to be good, but I'm like, this is not going to be to the level of season 1 finale. And then I want to say the only thing that I actually kind of was disappointed by was something with the ending, which I mean, I have a note about, so we can just get to when we get to the very end. There was just something at the very end that I was disappointed, but besides that, I mean, yeah, it was a great finale.
All right, well, let's dig into let's kind of recap in sections. I will say I tried to condense a little bit so we weren't like jumping around all the time.
It jumps so much in this, yeah.
But first,
very similar to the season 1 finale,
yeah.
Like just how much we're jumping.
Yeah. Just a little interesting, no cold open.
Yes.
Which almost all these episodes have cold opens.
I think it's the first time in the
I'm trying to remember
the whole show.
Yeah. But this one didn't have one.
Because it seems strange to me, and we just did a rewatch before doing this season, and I think this is the first time they've done that.
So I thought that was interesting. All right, so then we go after that in the title credits. We see Jane Egan talking with Helly on this. So it was just like they teased this at the end of episode
you said
9.
You tricked me.
You tricked me.
Yeah.
And this is where he was like, I was cross with you after I threw a tin of candies. As he says to her, he's like, he tells her he doesn't love his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
He used to see Kier in her, but he doesn't anymore. He sired others.
Yeah, we get that.
But still never found Kier. So that's kind of like what was alluded to last week. Is kind of confirmed there. He's like, but then I saw Kier in you and Helly, and the speech. Somehow she gets, and then she gets really in his face and aggressive, and he kind of like is like, yeah, I'm seeing it now, kind of vibe.
Yeah,
and then he's like, later, peace out.
So I love that. I think it's right after he says the throw the tin of candies or whatever it is. Like, I love that she says, just like other times in the show, like Helly finally says what we're all thinking. She's like, gosh, you're freaking weird. Like to him. Yeah. And I was so happy she said that because he is so weird.
Well,
and
also it's
just like when Mark was like, yeah, what is wrong with you, Rickon? You know, like it's like they do that. A good deal in this show. I like that.
Yeah. And like he's talking in this, and I mean, most of Lumen, they talk in this weird, and then she just talks normal, which is also just like a thing. But yeah, I mean, other than we can speculate other things later, kind of at the end, but yeah, that kind of, he just walks out.
Yep.
So then we go to right where we left off on episode 9. Mark and Devin and Harmony are in the cabin. They tell Mark, once Cold Harbor is complete, Miss Casey / Gemma will die. Mm-hmm. And they explain the plan, how they want him to help his Audi get her out of Lumen, and that this will help them end Lumen, which makes the Mark question, well, what happens to the Innies?
Yes.
And this is where, like, kind of the philosophical thing we've been dealing with a lot this whole season, and really is cemented in this episode of like, you know, like how
very much so in this. Yeah.
They hand him a camcorder and say someone else wants to talk to you. And then we get this fantastic back and forth. And this is one of those like masterfully edited,
I love
written
this.
dialogue and acted. Like this is ridiculously good.
And it's something we had never seen before.
Correct.
Like it's and what we've definitely wanted to see.
Yes. So finally Andy gets to talk to Mark's Audi and vice versa through because of recording stuff, and they stepping out stepping out of the building, and then it's Mark's Audi and he records something and stepping into the building, and then they come on. But like just the way they even cut between the dialogue and cutting, start to hear it, and then you see him watching it, and like it's
and I love how long they do this as well. Like this goes on for way longer than I thought it would. The back and forth.
Yeah.
And obviously how much it changes as it goes too. I also love that there's even a point, like you said, it is masterfully edited, but I love the point where they're almost, you see them sitting in the chairs, and they show it at one point with the dissolves where they're actually like sitting across from each other because of how he sits on the inside and then how he's sitting on the balcony as well. So cool.
Yeah. One note I thought was interesting, and kind of, I don't say some of this is practical, but it's also, I think maybe alludes to something. The Any Mark, his stuff, it's like the lighting's a lot more warmer on him because he's inside by the fireplace, and the Audi Mark is out in the cold, and it's like very cool, like colors, and just made me think like, because we kind of in this episode, like, well, one, we barely get Audi Mark this whole episode. It's pretty much Any Mark the whole episode.
Yeah.
And it's kind of positions Any Mark as more our hero than Audi Mark in this episode, which is a switch, a flip. Like, right? Like, I mean, when the show started, and definitely season 1, Audi Mark is who is our main guy, like he's our hero, and Any Mark is just like the side character. And, I mean, yes, they're kind of one and the same person, but I feel like they kind of.
No, there is a switch. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
like there was like a flip there in the like how what's perceived in this episode is who the hero is.
Yeah. Well, it's also Any Mark is the one that makes the final decision too.
Correct.
In this, yes, which we will get to.
Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting. The color palette. I mean, again, it's that way for practical reasons too. Like.
Also, I don't know if you're going to talk about the scene anymore, but I love the point where it does the dynamic changes with them back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you can talk about it, but there's a little note of the statues by the fireplace.
Yeah.
Just like such a
weird,
cool, weird lumen stuff.
Yes.
Because it's like the pregnant guy and the lady. And it's just like,
because also end of last episode when he's walking up the stairs, it's like a picture of Keir in like a 1800s like military uniform too. Like, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when the dynamic starts changing, I love the kind of callback to the flip of what we saw. Was that 2 episodes ago? An episode ago? Anyway, when he calls Helene.
Oh yeah.
He's like, Helene.
That's where it switches big time.
Yeah. And that's when he starts to get a little bit more defensive and really like kind of like,
there's a moment though before that even where you really see the first switch. I mean, yeah, but it's a big jump when he does say Helene, but it's when he kind of goes back to Audi Mark. And he's like, I think as soon as you rescue your wife, you'll forget all about me, which is something he says right. I think around the same time, maybe right before. But another thing I love that even though this dynamic changes a lot, Audi Mark does promise him that if you do this,
I will complete.
Like he says, like, I don't remember how he words it, but basically like, I will help you also, or take care of.
Yeah. He talks about like completing the reintegration.
Yes, but besides that, I haven't known about it.
Promises that, and then he and of course then Any Mark kind of questions if that's even real.
But I love that he keeps his promise to the very end to basically like what any Mark, the things that he desires and wants.
Mm.
Like Audi Mark promises him at the beginning. And I'm glad that he basically carries through that to the very end, because any Mark does get to finally make that final decision. So I think it's also cool that this is the moment, because it's obviously Adam Scott has done this before in the show, but this is where you really get to see it because it's back and forth so much. Like he does have a different voice,
Mm-hmm.
which I love, like from his Annie and Audi, and different mannerisms, like does a really good job with that, which I didn't notice all of this in the past, but because it's so much back and forth here, it's really cool to see the choices he makes. So you really can tell that they are different people.
Eventually Mark gets very frustrated with his Annie and yells for help. Harmony and Devin come up there, and she's like, and then Harmony's like, let me talk to him.
Yeah.
So alone. So then Devin leaves, and this is where we get Miss Cabell telling us about MDR and the numbers, and as they are his wife, a doorway into her mind of Gemma's. And then he's like, what are the feelings you see? Woe, frolic, malice, dread.
I wanted to ask you what you thought of this.
Yeah. The clusters are tempers, the building blocks of her mind.
Yeah. How'd you feel about her revealing this?
I mean, I feel like, I think it was a good moment to do it. I feel like it's for any more astute watcher. None of this is new information.
Thank you. That's what I want to know. I know it's all new information for him, but it's weird.
Correct.
The way they're revealing it in this scene is like a huge revelation to the audience too. And it's like, not really.
Not necessarily. I think it's supposed to be a huge revelation to him as an Annie, because he doesn't know anything.
I'm just saying the way they present it seems like it's supposed to be a big revelation for the viewer as well, which I think is weird because, like you said, it is definitely all stuff.
I think it probably is for a casual viewer.
Sure, yeah.
I think they might not have picked up on all those things, so I think it's like, here, this is something that you need to understand at this point, and if you haven't picked up on it, but for a way for us to say it out loud and clear, we're going to tell it to any Mark, so it's not just exposition for exposition's sake. Like, it does make sense because he needs to understand it too.
Yes, but I'm glad you and I was on the same page with that, because like to you and I, it's like, this
was obvious for a while. Yeah. Yes. I agree. Eventually, Mark gets even more upset and confused and threatens Gemma's life, and he's like, if I don't wake up the next time on the severed floor,
this
he's
is
never going to see her again or something. Yeah. So he's like,
this was a cool transition.
Yeah. And then, he steps out, and then
he's like, the next thing better be me on the severed floor.
Yep. And like you said, the cool transition, but this is also, again, to the point where we basically barely, like after this point, we only get Audi Mark for like a brief time on the testing floor, and that's it.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
And so we spend a lot of time with any Mark. So then we're on the severed floor with Annie Mark. He steps off the elevator, and there's this giant new painting on the wall.
Oh yeah,
that is epic and ridiculous.
Yes,
all at the same time.
Like so many things that Lumen does, epic and ridiculous. Yeah,
over the top.
Yes.
And it's got like Mark as the center at the computer, like as the almost like the orchestra, like he's got his hand up, like he's.
They make it seem like he's holding the world in his hands. Yeah. Like this is all.
And he's surrounded by, and it's just like almost every character we've ever even met or seen in this season.
Literally every character. It's crazy. I will say though that the one, I think it's supposed to be Petey, looks a lot like Ben Stiller also, because I was like, did they add him in there? But we didn't see him anywhere else in the painting, so I guess it's supposed to be Petey. Anyway, just in the picture, it reminded me of that somewhat. But
and just as we kind of take all that in, and Helly shows up right after him, And then you kind of notice it's strangely dark on the severed floor.
Yeah.
And then they get this leading light from like the lights overhead, just lighting up their path where to go.
Yeah, this is cool.
So they kind of leads them basically to MDR. But there's this strange Kier animatronic statue standing there that we don't quite know that's animatronic, I guess, right? Yeah. And has an envelope that has a card in it from Mark. And it says, "Goodly splendors await upon your victory. Signed, Mr. Milchek."
It says "Love, Mr. Milchek," which is even funnier.
And then it's what I just remember this as a kid. And I think they were kind of the pop-up cards. Like I remember, I guess that was a thing. Like, I don't know if that's when they were invented, but like, it seemed like they became popular kind of when I was a kid in the 80s, and like always was fascinated by them, how they worked. I think I even tried making some.
I think they were still pretty popular in the 90s when I was growing up, because I remember them a lot too.
So I just love that's what this is. And it's a waffle party, like the plate with the waffle. It was sick.
That was sick.
Shout out to the prop department for making that, because that was sick. And then the light shines over by their desks, and the computers kind of come on their own, and they kind of head over and sit down at their desks. And then they do a little catch up here of kind of like the shared events. Like he lets them know he was talking to the Audi, and lets Helly understand kind of what's going on there. And of course about the numbers a little bit. And then she is letting them know about James Egan, like showing up down in this. So it's kind of like, hey, what was your day like when I didn't see you, kind of catching up. But then they started getting into a little bit. He's like, well, what if he's lying? And Helly's like, well, what if he's not? And blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, but I want to be with you. And she's kind of like, yeah, but remember who I am. Yeah,
this is the part of it that's a beautiful interaction between them, where you really see how connected they are now at this point. Obviously, because of how much they've been together. I love that line. I think it's great, even up to the point where she's kind of supporting him. Like, because Lumen says it as like, Helly will second you or whatever, however they word it, like in your completion. But
she observe.
Yeah. I was thinking second, I was thinking of Shogun, like, but that's more of an execution, so that's not really. But I like how she's there, like, too, like very end, where she like holds his hand, but again, also brilliant too, because of her slipping the directions to him in that moment as well.
Well, and he starts to finish the files. Yes. Once she kind of like makes him realize that basically there's no world where she's going to get to stay here and they're going to there'd be reintegration, right? Like Helena's not going to want to reintegrate with Helly.
Nope.
And so like he realizes like there's really not hope for Helly like long term. So he kind of is like, okay, then I'm going to do this. And so he starts doing that. So he starts working on the files. Then we see Milchek walking down the hall, and he has I just thought it was funny. He has a little remote that just like flips the lights on.
Yeah.
He just kind of does this little click, and he greets Dylan at the elevator. He hands Dylan an envelope from his Audi
in the break room.
So they walk to the break room. I mean, you don't see him walk, but I just have a little note like, I want black envelopes like this.
Oh, this looks so cool.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't need I don't want the lumen thing on there, but I want a black envelope.
Could have like the Connect films.
I know. Yeah, I want a black envelope. I got to see if I can find them.
Yes, you should.
But anyway, so he hands and then I love.
This is the funniest thing.
He says, it may yield an embarrassing emotional response in you. And as I'm duly swamped, I shall leave you to read it in solitude. And then he like sprints out. He just turns
the way this is when I laughed.
And part of it's the camera framing too. Like the camera doesn't, so he just kind of walks out the bottom of it because the camera's like pointed up.
But in that moment, you're like, why did he do that? And it makes sense for the next scene why he was rushing, but it is so good. Like, just the physical comedy of that.
And then so Dylan starts to read the response, and his Audi So this is again one of those another opportunity for Innie and Outie kind of have a conversation. And obviously, this one's not. And he basically says, "There's 3 points." Why? He's like, point 1, F you.
Yes.
Gretchen is my wife and beloved, and your actions with her were deeply effing and
indecorous.
Decorous, yeah.
Indecorous, yeah.
Indecorous, yes.
Which I was not familiar with that word, but yeah.
So basically he denies his request.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then point 2 was
point 2,
yeah.
I get it. She's perfect. Given our shared physiology, it tracks that you would agree.
Yeah.
And then point 3, I hope someday she sees in me what she sees in you. And so while we're doing this, they're intercutting to like their Outie life and them together. And it's a really sweet kind of moment.
It is.
And I thought this was really interesting because it's a much more mature response from Outie Dylan. And then he kind of is like, and there's a part of me that kind of really likes you being there. And it's almost like knowing that somewhere inside him is that version of him, and his Outie knowing that there's like somebody that's a little bit more
accountable. Yeah. Kind of. Yeah.
And so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. No, that was a good interaction. It made a lot of sense.
So back with Mark and Helly in MDR, she has a little callback to the first episode of season 1 where she's I'm thinking of places besides Delaware, because that was the only thing she could think of when he's talking to her through the little speaker. And then that's where she said a few other things. Then she mentions the equator, which they laugh, and you're like, what is that? A tall building and he's like, it's so big. It's a building that turns into a continent.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny just the way they play with writing like that for like what they would understand as Innies, like
as a child or a teenager,
like,
whatever they are, adolescents at this point.
Just then, Mark does the final file and completes Cold Harbor. As that, Helly kind of comes over and slips some Irving's note on the directions to the testing floor elevator. Just as he completes it, music starts, and these green lights with mist start rolling in.
Do you recognize the song?
Yes, but
no, this song, not the song.
No, you're right. I actually know, but hold on one second. So my first thought was they were going to like drug them and make them fall asleep.
Oh,
for like a beat, because I was like thinking, oh, they don't want him to leave because now he's completed. But then it turns into something else, obviously, very quickly. So then some music. So what was the song? Because
it was the Alan Parsons Project song, but it was just it's one that is very familiar. It's been used a lot. Okay. That's why you recognize it. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't. And then a spotlight just comes out and shines on the Kier animatronic. And of course, this time it starts moving and talking. And he says, Mark S., in completing your 25th macrodata file, you have drawn my grand agenda. You have helped me draw to conclusion my grand agendum, nearing to fulfillment, thus making you one of the most important people in history. Mm-hmm. He intros Milchek. He says, and the manager of the severed floor. And then the spotlight
right in time. Well,
yeah.
Basically,
and then they basically have a little banter back and forth, like a cheesy jokes, like a
it's great. The spotlight, the laugh track, all of it. Yeah, the way it's presented.
It feels like an old talk show this thing, and it's great. Of course, I love the one you use with the verbose, because he's like says something. Well, I also joke about like
there's a lot of them.
Well, about his height. About the
5 inches taller than what he actually is. Yeah.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, and then after they've done with the jokes, Milchek says, now, ladies and gentlemen of MDR, may I introduce choreography and merriment?
Yeah.
And we start to hear a drumline band start playing.
I want to say before that, the Kier, like I could tell right away, I'm like, this is Ben Stiller's voice.
Oh, yeah. Which is cool. It's interesting. They definitely had an interaction that was unplanned. So like that animatronic was somewhat intelligent, unless someone else at Lumen was controlling it.
Yeah, on the other side, if they're doing it in real time, or if it's AI, or I don't know.
Yeah, because like
No, it was because he
obviously
wasn't planned for
they obviously his ding at his height and
because he says like I'll keep that in mind, Seth.
yeah
or something, whatever he says.
Yeah. So we don't know, but yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, the drum line and they're playing the Cure hymn.
Oh yeah, this is sick.
And
Another version of the song.
Yeah, and chanting
Awesome.
Mark. Of course, Milchek's leading them, and his dancing is phenomenal.
Yeah, they had to get another just because so many people loved in season 1.
Yeah,
his dance moves. They had to get him to do it again.
Ridiculous and awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah,
so good. So after this plays a little bit, then the Helly and Mark are like, Mark's like, I got to get out of here. So Helly runs interference with a distraction.
Did they play another song, a new song we haven't heard?
They switched to a different song when he starts dancing.
The Ballad of Ambrose and Gunnel, which is 2 Egans that we have heard about before. We don't know much about yet, but yeah, the song is great also.
Yes, and this is when he really starts dancing.
Yes,
and so she starts to run interference. She grabs his walkie-talkie, and kind of dances around, kind of moves around these band players, and she runs to the bathroom. Of course, he goes after her, and as soon as he starts after her, then Mark runs out as well. And then she basically he thinks that she's in one stall, she's not, and then she locks him in the bathroom.
Also, I don't know. Do you have a note about this when they do finish, when we get the overhead shot?
Oh, we're already had that.
Because that was so cool too.
Yeah, that overhead shot.
100% Mark, and it was like...
It was the end of the thing, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
End of the first song, yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a cool shot.
I want to hear you talk about the cinematography in this section just because there was some really cool, interesting shots. Even of like them coming in the band and all that. But yeah, which is cool.
I mean, I didn't put notes, so
okay.
I mean, yeah. So then Milchek's trying to get out, and just as he busts kind of open, then Dylan shows up. He started to hear the music. He came and he pushes one of the vending machines in the doorway, and that kind of buys him more time. Eventually, Milchek yells for C&M to return, but just then Helly stands up on the desk and gives this great speech. She talks about how they all lose people and their friends on the severed floor. She says, they give us half a life and think we won't fight for it.
Yeah.
Which is a great quote.
Yeah.
Again, it's like kind of alluding to, are they real or not? Innies and versus outies are different people.
Been tackling that a ton
this season
especially. Yeah.
So then we jump to Drummond and Dr. Maurer are watching as Mark completes Cold Harbor.
Yeah. There's also just a very quick, and I just want to point out because it's just so weird, like a very quick scene of James at his, like, going to his own little computer area, but like he goes right off the elevator. So it's like there is a whole floor that's just this little desk where he can sit at. It's so weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I have that.
Well, I have a note here because I think you first see him go in there somewhere around now. Yeah.
Well, I added it into this section because it's like irrelevant to that. That's what I was like. This I kind of grouped some stuff so we weren't jumping around quite so much. But yeah, you're right. It is
with the Kira portrait above it. It's like that's the only thing.
Because so they're watching Mark complete Cold Harbor. Drummond kind of steps out, and as he's leaving, he says, "Call Mr. Egan, let him know it's complete."
Oh yeah.
And Jamie Egan goes down an elevator. And opens the elevator right to like a little teeny room.
A little tiny, yeah.
And it's just one of their computers there, and he sits down and it says like starting soon or something, like because he guess he's going to get to watch the test.
Efficacy, is that how they worded it?
The efficacy test will begin shortly, is what Dr. Maurer says over like a voice, and that's kind of what it says.
It reminded me of when Westworld was actually good, like the fidelity test.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that's very similar to that type of thing. Yeah.
Drummond takes the elevator back to the severed floor, and as he comes out of that room, that hallway door, he goes into this, opens the secret door across from it, which is kind of wild. He just like pushes and it opens.
Yeah, this is cool because I'm like, there's got to be more of these around that we just don't know about.
Right. And then we see Mark running the halls, trying to find the elevator. He's looking at the note. And then we come back and we see Lorne, Gwendolyn Christie's character, walking a goat down the hall.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of goat shots here. And she brings it to Drummond in the secret room. He asks, has it verve? Which means great energy and enthusiasm. She says yes. Wiles, yeah. Ways of persuading someone that trick them into doing something. And she says yes, more than anyone else, any others of the flock. So she brings the goat in. He closes the door with a remote again. So just same as like Milchek earlier. I thought it was the sound design here was really good, where they close it and it feels like it seals, like all the ambient noise goes away when they close that door. And Drummond says, this beast will be entombed with a cherished woman whose spirit must guide to Kier's door. After he does that, he grabs a gun and has one bullet dispensed from the wall and puts it in the gun. They put the goat in this like kind of tomb thing in the center of the room, and he hands the gun to Lorne so she can hold it to the goat to shoot the goat. Just as they're ready to do that, they hear Mark, who had finally found the door to the elevator. He's trying to get it open. He's banging it open, and they hear the banging because literally right outside there. Yeah,
it's like kind of an answer, but not really, to like what the goats are for.
I mean, kind of, but really,
right. It's not.
I mean, fully. It's a lot of this. Like we're getting answers, but not
fully. Yeah.
Not yes. So just then, Drummond hears it, so he opens the door and sees Mark just there, and he grabs him, and they start to fight, and he almost chokes Mark out when then Lorne shows up with the gun and holds it to Drummond's head. Then they both start fighting, and we get Brianna Tarth all over again.
Oh yeah,
she's like doing the scream and everything, and she almost kills them with the gun because she actually beats up Drummond, and Mark stops her.
She's like, no more killing.
Yep.
She's upset about that.
Yeah. So then we see Gemma gets a new outfit in her room on the
This is what I want to talk about. Yeah.
And it's the jacket. And they show us this by like flashing to the night that she left and died.
Yeah. This is messed up though, that they like
it's the jacket
make
from
her wear.
Yeah, and the scarf. Yep. Yeah. The nurse walks her to Cold Harbor room. She pricks her finger, lets her in. And then Gemma goes in. Of course, when she switches, she's standing there and she sees the crib in the middle of the room. The doctor's voice, Dr. Maurer.
Yeah.
Maurer. Asked her, who are you? She says, I don't know. He asked her to take the crib apart, and she starts to. And then he says, the barrier is holding. She feels nothing. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And this kind of alludes to what we were talking about before, where we think like they're trying to create like utopia where you don't feel any pain.
Right. And that's why this is the final one. It's like this would be
the hardest
biggest, one. Yeah.
Biggest pain she would have felt. And if they're able to make her not remember it, then they're successful. So then we get back to Mark approaching the elevator to the testing floor, and he's got Drummond by gunpoint. And as they go down, Mark changes from the innie to the outie, and then the outie inadvertently pulls the trigger and kills Drummond. And this was fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, gross, but fantastic.
It is funny because like we don't really see
that kind
blood
of
at all, or even the fight before it. We don't really get to see it all in Severance, and it's like there was a lot of it in this.
Yeah, right there, and violent, but this was like it made me laugh at the same time.
Oh yeah,
but it's also like duh, like that would happen. Like if you just like you would just like
you would
I'm sure they tense up when the transition happens.
Yeah,
right?
no, it definitely makes sense.
So
It's also just the timing of it because he's like, all right, in a couple seconds, I'm going to turn to, he's like trying to tell him real quick.
So Mark ends up on the testing floor. So then he has to, he kind of wanders down and he finds the nurse in the cold harbor room. She's like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And he tries to get her to open the door. She doesn't, and she runs off because the gun obviously doesn't do anything. He's like, click, click, click. And does because he only had one bullet. He tries to prick his fan, doesn't work. And then he realizes maybe Drummond's blood. So he puts the tie up there. It's covered in Drummond's blood.
Smart. I was going to ask you.
And that opens the door.
Did you see one of the new rooms he passed by? Because I was going to shout it out.
No.
Waynesboro.
Was it really?
Yeah, there was a room called Waynesboro, which is interesting.
Didn't catch that one.
Yeah, when he's looking around until he finds the Cold Harbor room.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. So he gets in. As he steps in, he sees Gemma there. So, and of course, this is the other short time we get the outie of Mark, not the Annie. So this is the first time. So then when he sees her, this is the first time outie Mark sees Gemma alive. And confirms that she's alive. Like he hasn't seen her since she died.
Right. This is one of my favorite parts of this whole finale, is that we get all 4 permutations as they're leaving. You know what I'm talking about? Like Annie and Outie version with each other.
Yep.
I love that. Like, and we get all those different versions or different combinations as they're leaving.
This is the start of it. So this is outie Mark with a version of any Gemma, because basically there's 25 of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is 25th one. Yeah.
So she's scared because she doesn't know who he is. He kind of reassures her. The doctor's over the log calls like, don't go with him, don't trust him. But then he gets her to, and she almost has the crib completely taken apart at this point. Like when he finds her. They start to go out, we get the scene of Jamie Egan. He's not happy. He's like, F.
Oh yeah, he yells.
Which is almost like just funny too, because him just saying a profanity and his like just
and being
weirdness.
Loud because he has like the most old man voice normally and like really quiet.
Of course, then he leads her out, and as she steps out, she switches back to actual Gemma, and
right. But Mark doesn't change, so he's
correct. This is the outie Mark. Seeing outie Gemma for the first time now, finally. And she's seeing Mark for the first time since she, quote unquote, died.
Yeah, this was awesome.
And so that was an awesome moment. Right, correct. Of course, they head to the elevator quickly after a quick, like, kiss and hug. Because then also the alarm starts. And so they have to head.
Yeah, and they're starting to chase him.
And, it was like, but just a very touching scene.
It is.
Start sound. We see it going off at MDR as well. And Helly kind of gives a nice smirk smile of like, she kind of knows, okay, Mark and Gemma escape the testing floor. And as they're going up the elevator, they're both kissing. And then they switch to Miss Casey and Annie Mark. and she's a bit
great
confused.
Also. Yeah.
Because she's like, Mark S., what is happening?
Yeah, that was awesome. By the way, Dr. Maurer says something that I don't know if people should look more into this line or not, but he says, you'll kill them all.
Oh, right. As they're running out
and I don't know if that's supposed to be a deeper meaning or not.
You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Is that going to kill all the innies?
Right.
We don't know.
Not sure about it.
Or are there other, we also don't know, are there other testing floors? Right?
Yeah.
What were this is kind of Mark was doing, but what were the other files? Were everybody working on files of...
Right, because we talked about it before. It's like, at that point, was that just like busy work and didn't matter? And only Mark
we don't know.
Stuff was like what mattered? I don't know.
Yeah. Seems like a lot riding on one person, right? Doesn't seem like Lumen would be that.
No.
So like there might be others, and what Dylan was working on something, other people working on other things. So then Miss Casey's confused, so Mark just pulls her along down the halls. Milchek busts out of the bathroom finally, but is confronted by Dylan and the whole C&M team, because they basically they took to heart what Helly said with her speech, and they're kind of like holding him hostage. Miss Casey and Mark get to the stairwell door. She steps out, and then Gemma turns, and she looks through the window, and now we get Gemma seeing the any mark, like you said, and she starts yelling for him. So she's like, "Come on through the door!" But then Helly shows up also.
Yeah,
we get this interesting glance between Helly and Gemma. It's kind of like a respect acknowledgement, but also like, "Oh, you're the other woman," kind of acknowledgement. Like I feel like there's a lot of nuance in there.
A lot, yeah.
But then Mark's and he hesitates, and
he's got to make the final choice.
And he's like, do I go? Do I stay? Do I go? Do I stay? So finally decides to stay. And of course, Gemma's yelling, Mark. She does not obviously want this to. And Mark and Helly grab hands as the music starts, which is Windmills of Your Mind.
Yes.
And they run down the halls.
The Mel Torme version, though, because I recognize the vocals especially, because there's different people that have sung the song. Yeah. But yeah.
And then they're running down the hall, and then they end on a freeze frame with a push in on the freeze frame. That's very 1960s, 70s style into films.
It reminded me right away. Before they even talked about it in the official pod, I was like, this whole effect. Yeah. I was like, yeah, this is very,
very retro of the of the style of a lot of the aesthetic of Lumen and all that stuff. Has like the very mid-century modern kind of retro future kind of stuff mixed in there, and kind of that 70s 60s futuristic looking stuff.
But the slow zoom in also, because I was like, this does look different, and I know then they talked about in the pod like that is film, because I was like, why does this look grainier, that final shot? I think they talked about I don't know, I saw it somewhere, because I was like, this does look different. So they switched back to film at some point for this final shot.
Oh, it's really grainy. I didn't hear that on there. So.
Okay, well maybe it's somewhere else. I don't know. I saw, because it definitely is different. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just making up in my mind, but it definitely looked grainier. And obviously when they zoom in too, because it has to be, since it's a freeze frame, then they're artificially zooming in the slow zoom, right? So yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it looked
and then we get these end credits that are in red.
Yeah, this was also, these visuals are very 70s too.
Yep.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
So any thoughts that we missed on that stuff before we get into kind of kind of thoughts on like?
This makes sense, the choice he makes. But I think also, what was I going to say? Oh, very interesting, because we thought we'd see them more, because we were kind of just talking about MDR again. All those new MDR people at the very beginning of the season, like I thought they would come back in some way. And then the other person I thought about, I was like, man, we hardly got anything at all, was our boy Rickon. Like,
yeah, later the second half of the season too. Like it was a little more with him in the beginning, first couple episodes. But then we kind of got away. Yeah.
But everyone else was pretty much covered very well. No, I just have two notes about like ending stuff that.
Yeah. Well, so then, what do you think of this ending? Like, what do you think of this ending?
Well, I can get into my one note. Like, kind of this is the only thing that disappointed me about the ending, because I thought it was a good ending.
Yep.
But the only thing that I really thought they were going to do that they didn't do at all was give us like a larger scope or a bigger reveal in general, not only of Lumen, but maybe of the area or the world, to kind of expand out. Because normally with a show, you want to kind of, which they did do some with the season, but expand out, give it a bigger, I don't know, just expand on it more. So, and they kind of did the opposite, like especially with this ending where like this is still very contained to just like them down there, to what's going to happen next to the Ennies. It's like we don't know anything else new or any kind of big information about like Kier, Lumen, or just the end game of what they want. And again, that could just be my expectations, and they didn't want to do that, which obviously clearly they didn't want to do that for this ending. But that was the part that was disappointing to me. It's like we didn't really get any big grand reveals. You know?
Yeah.
Or maybe like the impact around the world more, or just get more of an idea of like kind of where they're going to go from here.
Yeah, you're right. They didn't. I guess I wasn't expecting as much because I feel like because
I also don't know the consensus of like how people felt about this finale. Like that was just my expectations, but yeah, you didn't feel that. So
I guess I didn't feel like, because I think I wasn't expecting to get some grand new information because of the way the rest of this and season 1, even for the most part, the way they write stuff is they don't hold that stuff back, right? Like they reveal, I mean, like the things that they revealed so early on in season 1, and then even in season 2, it's like they're not, I mean, yes, there's things that they're holding back, but like they aren't like, let's build all this thing way up and then reveal this thing. It's like they're like talk about something, and then like the next episode they're like, oh, actually here's,
true.
They kind of do that more often. Not with everything, again, because there's still stuff you got to hold. There has to be some mystery.
Yes.
So I guess I was going to not as much. It was more focused on like the heist, so to speak, of getting Gemma free versus, and they kind of now
they did that. Yeah, they executed all that. Yeah.
I think the this twist with Mark staying in. I mean, obviously, I guess he could choose never to leave, and there would never be an outie. But like,
yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Like, and obviously, it's more of the interest of how they're setting things up for, the future. Like, I'm hoping they have some idea where they're going to go with this. But they're definitely putting some. They're ending things in a weird place, which they kind of did last season.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they kind of were able to pick it up and make sense. So
yeah, which is good, because I remember after the end of season 1, I was like, where the heck do they go from here? And in the same way with the end of this season, like, I don't know, because it's like Kier and Lumen are going to do something with them. Like, they're not going to be able to just live down there for. I mean, there's even the foreshadowing with Cobell where she's like, "There will be no honeymoon ending for you," and which is a great line. That I'm like, that's like they're happy right now running. Well, the end shot's kind of like running into the unknown, right?
Yes,
but it's like it's going to be short lived. Like, there's no way they're like
right. But it fits. So going back to what they've kind of, I guess, mentioned in the little interviews after, and we've kind of talked about, if this is them in their adolescence, then the choice is obvious, because in an adolescence, you're not looking at the bigger picture. You're living in the moment.
No, you're right. It does make sense. Yeah.
And so then you're just making that choice based on that. So, so I feel like it's makes sense from that standpoint. I'm just gonna talk about like this. A little bit. We didn't get any more Irving or Bert this last episode.
That's my last note. Yeah.
I feel like there's still lots of unknowns around his character.
Oh yeah, both of them.
Both of them. It's true.
So we never got who was on the phone.
Correct. That's the note I had. We never knew who he was calling on the phone, the payphones. And then of course, still, what was he doing? Why is his Audi knew where the elevator was for the testing floor? Like, why did they have all this information, and why was he there had to be more to that, and we just never got any of that. So,
which they could still reveal, but I think
they could still bring him back for that stuff too. I mean, like
it seemed like, and you might have talked about this before. I can't remember if you did or not, but it seems like for both John Turturro and Christopher Walken, they wrote it to where, like, if they don't want to be on the show anymore, because it's like, it's got to be hard to get both of them. Like, I mean, it's amazing that they're both in this show to begin with.
Yep.
So like, it seems like to me that they kind of wrote it in a way to where if they're like, yeah, we can't be on the show anymore, then that's fine. They could still answer some of those questions.
Yep.
With them not being on the show. But I do hope they both come back, because they're amazing. But
yes,
that was my feeling on it.
I agree.
Yeah.
So then I just like, again, like, where's, I guess eventually Mark's going to have to to leave.
Yeah, like
Can't stay down there forever. And then, so then he's going to, but then like Dylan and all of C&M are there holding Milchek hostage. So like, where's that go? I mean, like, I guess there could be a whole actual any uprise that's a little bit more.
Yeah, it seems like that.
Like that then.
Not just like the 4.
Yeah. And we don't really know how many people are down there.
No.
I mean, like, there was this whole new choreography and merriment like group that.
I know, which is so cool. I'm just thinking about it. I kind of do wish they would have seen, and I guess it's assumed, or maybe they want to save it for the beginning of season 3, but I did want to see Gemma actually get out and at least like get to, I don't know, I guess Devin and Cobell or whoever was going to get, but like I'm assuming if she got to that point, she made it safely out of the Lumen building as a whole. But I don't know, maybe they want to show that in the next season.
Well, and then that's
because I hope she's still a main character as well. Like I hope that's not it for her as well.
I mean, one, we're kind of flipping that as well. Like, right, like if we're going to where Gemma is the Audi, trying to get her husband's mark, and now she knows he's alive. So like, but like maybe for some reason they're figuring out a way to keep the Annie in there, and like she's in the least part of season 3. She's like now she's trying to get Mark out of there. I don't know.
Yeah,
so there's definitely angles they could take there from a story standpoint.
I want to say I already saw an article where they were already in the writer's room for season 3, which is good that they did a head start on that. Because again, it's like, I just saw they were like, hey, season 3 is happening. It's like, yeah, of course. It's like, it's so weird that you have to
announce the day,
right? And I'm like,
day of the final.
It's the biggest show. Like there was no doubt. Like this was going to be the end of the show. No, but I remember seeing even before this final episode aired, there was an article or something about like they were already in the writer's room, which was great. So I like that they were, started it after they were done with like all the post production of season 2.
So interesting thought on Helly and James Egan.
Okay.
So I think I was thinking about one angle, the fact that he sees Kier in her, he might actually want to, from a Lumen standpoint, want to elevate Helly R over Helena.
That would be interesting. I didn't think about that.
So if it's like he's finally seeing the part of his daughter that he wants to see,
switch it to her.
Like he might want to, I mean, I'm sure there's a way they could make it just Helly R all the time. Even, right? They can
see all the protocols that they have.
So like that could be a twist. Interesting. Where she's like roaming around as an Audi, but like not an Audi.
And Mark is just like in love with her.
Yeah.
Mark S is. And but then she's going to be on the path to what her Audi already was. Yeah, that would be. But then the
issue you have is like, at least so far, she hasn't been very pro Lumen. So like he's going to have this weird where he's like, once, I don't know. There was just a thought I had about like,
I wish you would take them wrong. The most unhinged line of the.
So anyway, it was just kind of a thought I had.
No, that's interesting.
Of course, Devin and Harmony, you assume like will connect with Gemma. But another thing I thought about was like, one of the things I realized after this episode is nothing that happened in the Cobell Harmony episode.
Episode 8, yeah.
None of that would have needed to happen for anything that happened in episode 9 and 10. So one, what the heck? Why? I mean,
that seems to be the divisive one of the season for sure.
Definitely my least favorite episode of the whole season.
I think you're not alone there.
But also like I said, that reveal felt so weird and out of place and forced that she invented it all. But then I was expecting that to come into play, and it didn't come into play at all. Like the little bit of information she gave Mark S, like about the numbers and what they mean and stuff. Like I'm sure Milchek knows that information. That's like standard information as the manager of the severed floor. So like that's not like anything special that she knew.
No.
And so then she didn't have anything.
And it's funny because That's what bothered you the most, was like that she was the inventor.
Mhm.
And that didn't bother me as much. What bothered me was the episode afterwards, when they all caught up with each other and they were just staying around, not talking about anything. Like, that drove me crazy, because I'm like, you have this, they've been waiting for a while to be like, and they've been asking Kobe all this stuff, and they were just sitting around all day waiting for nighttime, and like nothing went on. Anyway, that's
yeah.
like
I mean, you're right. I mean, that's a little weird. Like, I mean, they had to wait to go to the cabin.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they could have talked about stuff the whole
a
time.
lot of stuff. Yeah.
Could have asked her a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
But also, Mark doesn't really trust her, so maybe he doesn't really care.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I can't really predict. Just like
Yeah,
the end
who
of season
knows?
1,
Yeah.
I'm like, I have no idea where they're going to go from here.
Just interesting thoughts.
It is. I mean, but I definitely want to, which I know you'll mention here in a second, but I definitely want to hear people write in or comment or whatever. I do want to hear people's thoughts, predictions, everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely send them in. We can discuss them next week.
Yeah.
If you have any thoughts or feedback about the finale, let us know. And you can send those either email at feedback@screentimepod.com, or, leave us a comment on YouTube or DM us on one of the social platforms. You can like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and all those for Screen Time Pod. If you'd like to follow each of us individually on Instagram, I'm at jyoungbar.
And I'm at Jared Youngbar.
All right. Until next time, praise Kier.